There is no denying that Prime Yuji has surpassed Gojo and Sukuna. His sensei's statement that the new generation wouldn't be limited to special grade, it has finally come true. Because Yuji has become a calamity, and is now the strongest sorcerer of all time. A single dismantle from Yuji now carries nuclear-level output, and he is now using Black Flash at will. But that's only half the problem, because Barbaric Genius just unlocked Curse Technique Reversal, and is using his new power to one-shot Mahoraga. So don't go anywhere, people, because by the end of this video, I'm going to explain everything that will blow your mind. Previously, Yuji stopped the Cimmerians and Sorcerers from tearing each apart. He mastered blood manipulation and tracked curse energy signatures throughout the building. Yuji launched multiple strands like homing missiles, disarming every single person. As a result, his cover is blown, as Nino catches him. After all, Yuji was hiding in the shadows, staying away from the sorcerer world. However, in Chapter 20, Osaki immediately jumps out of the building to attack with his axe at full power. But this dumbass doesn't know who he's dealing with, because with just the palm of his hand, Yuji brushes it aside, like nothing happened. Yuji showcases his mastery and shrine instantly, because just like Sukuna did against Yuta, by using precise slashes like a chainsaw, they can grab a blade without touching it. However, Osaki notices something special about Yuji. His aura is just like a Kalyan. So everyone in our community, make sure to comment with a round of applause, because this is yet another prediction we all got correct together. But why is Yuji being similar to a Kalyan so important? Well, since Yuji can't age anymore, thanks to being closer to a cursed object being half and half, the entire conflict started because the Lumerian's third eye suddenly began crying. For this species, when a Kalyan is killed, the brain damage is catastrophic. So to them, cursed spirits aren't monsters. They've interpreted them as deities, the beings who granted them their abilities. That means Yuji can be the solution to the conflict, by creating an understanding between everyone. This parallels what happened to Master Tengen. She became closer to a cursed spirit when the merger failed, and she too was worshipped by the Time Vessel Association. Yuji happens to find himself in a similar situation in a different era. However, right now, he's aura farming like never before. Osaki looks pretty durable, so without a second's notice, he charges up a punch to end his whole career. Mino comments that Yuji's precision of control is so advanced that there is no delay in his energy going into his fist. This is a reference to Chapter 235, where the occurrence of energy wells up in a sorcerer using any ability. But this proves Yuji's efficiency has reached Sukuna and Gojo's level with the 6 eyes. But the people in this era are astonished to see it firsthand. Yuji then performs a Black Flash at will, with 0 effort. Osaki bounces around like this Looney Tunes character, flying Keno Meows across the city, knocked out. Now, against Mahito and Sukuna, Yuji made it look like he can perform Black Flash at will, especially since he broke all the records. However, even Gojo told us that no sorcerer is capable of doing that, not even himself. He speculated that even the temperature and humidity could affect whether a Black Flash occurs. So this just highlights how skilled Yuji has become. His understanding of Black Flash must be unrivaled, but he isn't done cooking. His mastery of blood manipulation is on full display as he creates a non-lethal attack on Mino and everyone else in the building. They instantly start shaking and vomiting. And that's because Yuji has the ability of his brothers, thanks to his unique physiology as a death-painting wound. So just like Choso, Yuji's blood has a special poison which drains its victim's stamina, causing them to get sick. However, Yuji once again says he doesn't care. Haven't we had enough of Yuji Itadori? That line mirrors Gojo himself. He knew the world leaning on a single pillar was a mistake. He carried it anyway, and when he fell, everything collapsed. Yuji watched what happens when everyone assumes the strongest will handle it, and he refuses to let history repeat itself with him at the center. And this is linked to the events in Chapter 17. We learn that Yuta's son Iori was chasing a standard he could never reach. Sorcerers are only getting weaker, which is widening the problem, and that pressure broke his mind. But before he left the sorcerer world, he met Yuji, who said, "It doesn't matter." Now, I know a lot of you are confused about this, but let me break it down. Yuji understands the cost of being the strongest. Everyone who knew him as a person and actually understood who he was is long gone. The people who are left behind only see Yuji the sorcerer, the legend who defeated Sukuna. So now when they reach out, it's because something needs fixing. And that isolation is what hurts Yuji. Remember that in the video message, even Nobara confirmed once again that although Yuji is strong, he is very sensitive, and he loves everyone, right? And when you look at the line that he states, it actually hits even harder when you realize what he's referencing. He states, "Veterans don't die, they just fade away." He's directly quoting General Douglas MacArthur's farewell speech. That line was about stepping aside, about knowing when your role in history is over, even if you're still capable of fighting. So Yuji feels like his role as a sorcerer is finished. Yuji then states that he will take care of all the cursed spirits escaping Tokyo, and if Yuta's granddaughter loses against Dabura, he will clean up all the mess. Now whether or not Yuji knows about Yuka's brain cancer is a different issue, but he looks confident that he can fix any problem that will occur, as he has mastered reverse curse technique. He does not want the Desukunte duel to be interrupted, nor the battle between Maru and Tsurugi. This leads to Mino saying he will not forget about Yuji, nor will he forgive him. But the only response he receives is a sarcastic laugh, because truthfully Yuji admits his loneliness. And after he explains that everyone hit by his blood manipulation would need 2 to 3 days of rest, Mino completely snaps. He doesn't understand Yuji's intentions, because from his perspective, Yuji refused to become humanity's champion against Dabura. To him, Yuji abandoned responsibility. But this reminds our MC of Gojo, stating that's the right choice, isn't it, sensei? And that single line reframes everything. Gojo said himself that he could have easily killed every higher-up, but they would just be replaced. So he went the longer route of fostering a better generation. But remember, when Yuta called out everyone's hypocrisy in chapter 261? They claimed they care about Yuta's humanity. Yet no one ever had this conversation when it came to Gojo. He was treated like a monster and a weapon, just like Yuji is now. That's when Gojo's words from chapter 236 finally clicks into place. There was always a gulf between me and other people. You can admire a flower and help it bloom, but you cannot ask it to understand you. Gojo and Yuji are treated as a political asset and a living deterrent, someone whose feelings never mattered as long as the system stayed intact. But that's the future Yuji is trying to prevent. Yuta even begged Gojo to not shoulder that burden alone, but he already knew that morality in this world was never clean. To achieve one's dream, you have to be selfish, and another dream has to be destroyed. Where there was a few sacrifices like Principal Yaga, Geto, Yuki and more were collateral damage. This all leads to Yuji's memory before fighting Sukuna. Gojo is exhausted and asked, "Haven't we had enough of Gojo?" He wanted his students to surpass him, and the only way for them to grow beyond him was for the seeding to disappear. Because why would anyone aim higher when the strongest already exists? Gojo, just like Yuji, is solving every problem, so growth stagnated around them. So now, Yuji completely understands his sensei. The sorcerers have been getting weaker and weaker since 68 years have passed. But this Jujutsu world needs to have a balance. That means the best solution is for Yuji to stay in the shadows, letting them face hardship so they can grow. And speaking of growing in power, Dabura once again proves that he could be the strongest of all time. Not only did he unlock RCT in an instant, he applied its knowledge into his technique to create reversal. And this isn't even the limit to his potential, because Dabura can also combine light and darkness for a new imaginary technique that can destroy reality. Much like how Gojo created purple through mixing blue and red. As a result, Mahoraga is shook, and we see Dabura smiling again as he just created a black ball of gravity mass that's sucking everything into a black hole. He reclaims the path for victory against Mahoraga, but this time he will make sure to finish him off in a single attack. Whilst Dabura is leveling up, Tsurugi and Maru are still going at it. With the help of Rika, Tsurugi is not only keeping up with Maru's awakening, but also overwhelming him. But suddenly, they notice this massive wave of cursed spirits heading towards them. They are mass migrating in fear of Dabura. The sorcerers had warned the Sumerians that Tokyo is no longer habitable, and that a different solution had to be found. Just giving them Tokyo was never an option, because if left unchecked, cursed spirits would continue to multiply inside the city, oversaturating the area before inevitably spilling beyond its border. That's exactly why the Great Purge exists, a necessary reset meant to prevent overflow. But this time, it had been postponed due to the incident involving Cross. That is why Yuji mentions that they underestimated the numbers. However, Maru gets distracted by the cries of the cursed spirits, which gives Tsurugi an opening to enact his plan. He pulls out the Soul Split Katana out from Rika's storage, the same one that Mai curated for Maki. This sword ignores all physical toughness to cut through the hardest substances, and strikes directly at the soul. but its true power can only be unleashed by those of the eyes that can see the souls of inorganic objects. Which means Tsurugi has to learn the same hard lesson his grandmother did to unlock it. Rika then tells him to swing it with everything he's got, and she'll add cursed energy. And oh boy, he did, because Maru realizes what he was aiming for. It doesn't end there. Yuji shows up as well to show off his very own Dismantle. Both their attacks slice through each and every cursed spirit in an instant. And in terms of power scaling, this is just ridiculous. Yuji has clearly become the strongest, reaching Sukuna and Gojo, just like his sensei wanted him to. The result is a nuclear explosion. And when you take into account Tokyo's geography, the range of Yuji's Dismantle is at least 6 kilometers across. The cloud that is reaching the sky is the dust left behind from cursed spirits being destroyed. But that isn't the point, everyone should know. The fact that Yuji's Dismantle can travel such a huge range is ridiculously OP. And to back this up with even more evidence, in Chapter 19, Miyaguni explained how they designated a 10-kilometer zone in Tokyo for these cursed spirits. Yuji has basically matched King Sukuna's feat of strength. Remember that his open domain in Shibuya has a similar radius. So Yuji basically soloed the job in one slash, which all the sorcerers of the modern era were meant to do. This proves Yuji mastered Shrine as well, giving him access to other powers like Cleave, Spiderweb, Open Domain, and Divine Flame as well. So comment right now, Prime Yuji versus Gojo, or Prime Yuji versus Sukuna. Whichever wins, that's the next video I'll make as soon as we have enough info to power scale it properly. However, due to all this death, Maru's eye starts tweaking out. The death of these spirits causes severe pain. He then takes advantage of Maru's weakness and strikes him across the body. With Maru deciding to finish this, Tsurugi starts step 2 of his plan. My guy uses a binding vow to completely eradicate his cursed energy. Tsurugi, remember he was born with extremely little, just like his grandmother, and this attachment was a blocker. Now, according to Tsurugi, he's still weak, right? That is why he thought his family was giving him the ring in the first place, not caring about his opinion. But this strength would now allow him to move on from the ring, as he wouldn't need its protection anymore. He's now ready to return it to his sister, who, if you've forgotten, just wants the ring for sentimental value, as Yuka loved Yuta more than anyone else. Tsurugi then thanks Rika, and she passes on, giving her his blessing. He becomes one of the strongest, and his speed gets even faster, destroying Maru, the friend he once had. To enjoy more peak fiction regarding Jujutsu Kaisen, watch this video on your screen right now.